Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. I am your hostess, Dimples, the unfiltered bookworm, the gothic country girl in training. That's a whole other separate thing. And of course, the lady who always has champagne handy. Righty. So today we're going to talk about the third book in the Crave series by Tracy Wolff, Covet. And I think I wanted to start off with a quote because why not? Like, I think this quote kind of summed up everything about the book. It's spoiler free, but getting into this episode, we will be talking about spoilers from the book Covet. So if you haven't read the book, I seriously recommend checking it out from your local library, or if you really are impatient to wait for the library like I was, I just bought Covet. I'm not gonna lie, because it is much more easier. Oh my goodness, Covet took forever. And I mean forever because I had like four people in front of me who had this. I don't know. I think it's a little bit popular, especially in the wintertime. But that's just me. Hopefully, I get the next one sooner. I'm trying to work on my patience. Ask my boyfriend. So, but anyway, back to the quote. I chose a quote that says, "The things we say we matter, we can't just pretend they don't. But until we figure that out, until we start acting like they do, we're just going to make the same mistakes." End quote. So I'll admit that I enjoyed this one way more than I did Crush. Crush felt like the most Twilight to me, and let me explain why. I don't believe in a heroine standing not completely on her own. In Crush, Grace had not one but two men on her side consistently. There was Jackson pursuing her and them trying to like heal up their lost time from the relationship. And then there was Hudson all up in her head telling her things like she never had a moment of privacy. And then above it all, she was like learning about who she was. Overall, Crush was, in my opinion, aight. It was aight. Like, okay. I'm not saying that Crush did not have its purpose because there was really nice moments with Grace on her own as well as her two pursuits. If you have not checked out that videos, please feel free to check out the video Crush video before this because I do get into depths on that one and why my opinions stand or when did they stand in regards to the second book in the series. So that being said, check that out before you come to this video if you haven't already. But let's get back to Covet. So while Covet did like a more enormous amount on the awkwardness of this triangle, I can't lie. I like the fact that they approached this because I was like, what? I was mind blown by the end of Crush. I was mind blown. I was like, okay. Well, of course, the guy who's been in her head 24/7 and kind of accepts her as she is, of course, it's gonna be like the fated mate, you know. I figured like that wasn't too much of a twist, but I was like, this is awkward. This is gonna get real awkward real quick. So I'll admit, I just that situation was not for me. I absolutely cringed at the revelation at first. At first, like I'm getting into it, guys. I get it, but how does one even start to move on with that like kind of sadness and potential friendship? Because with Crush, it was all about the love triangle too much. I.e., is Grace gonna finally have Hudson out of her head? How does Grace fit into society, not just at Camille Academy, but like also the first gargoyle in years? I understand they are the main team in charge of all the action. And by the main team, I mean Grace, Jackson, Hudson, and of course, like the side characters such as Flint and Macy, and the occasional I don't know, the occasional cameos of the order that are devoted to Jackson. Not to mention, like, I'm pretty sure like the most powerful in that society is clearly established thanks to King Cyrus and him like constantly trying to kill and or imprison Grace and Hudson. So let me talk about that. Let's talk about the power politics in this book. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate the power plays because I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got interested in these power plays. I truly enjoyed reading about the high royalty amongst these fantastical creatures like Queen Nuri, King Cyrus, and how each person's role here is important. It ranges from from the unkillable beast to ultimately like that emerald. Yeah, I cannot talk. Sorry. The emerald string that lies within Grace and the crown, and the crown itself being a complete legend, but one that is the holy grail in solving a lot of the mess, including Jackson's soul, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm very disappointed in. Mm-mm. I know that Jackson has a soul, but I wanted more of his character. I need him to have his happy ending. Like I need him to be with a soul, like and mate, preferably Flint. And it's not fair that he got more fucked over in this book. I understand that Grace and Jackson's bond may have been manufactured. We'll talk later, blood letter. We'll talk later. Like I said before, I was truly fascinated with Jackson's character in Crave, so I'm holding out hope for his character without much hope. But still, hope is hope. And Jackson is like my heart's sweetheart and the tortured soul that will pull at my heartstring. I don't want him as Grace. I'm not gonna say I'm established now. I know for a fact I cannot have him as Grace because even thinking about it now, I just real like I think I talked about this still in the previous episode. And I'm just gonna reference this real quick. But it's just that he wanted to coddle Grace too much. And I get it. I love being coddled too. But at the same time, I need my partner to challenge me, and he does. And push me to like be better, and I think that's what Hudson more represents. Plot wise, I enjoy good action plots without completely going over the top. I did not think that Grace, for one, was actually going to go to this super deadly prison with Hudson. And two, the fact that there is a whole inmate waiting for her is something else entirely. The addition of the jailmates was nice because it kind of gave readers and me like a clue of just how much wrong there is in this society under King Cyrus because sadly, Remy, even though he could see the future, only has so much power that the prison keeps locked and hidden. The fact that the prison makes prisoners relive their traumas and torture them to death over it, that was something really sad to read. And personally, I think that Grace should have done this once. I know she said it herself that she should have done this once, but alas, gargoyles seem to be one of the most unbreakable ones in this universe in regards to being immune to magic and being able to wield it as well. That being said, let me get into the character of Grace. Grace, I gotta say, she's a baddie with a tattoo, a sleeve. I just had to play in that real quick. I will always appreciate the fact that there is clearly a much smoother transition that is clear and confident in Grace that she as an heroine, in my opinion, did not have it all in Crush. Which I mean, I can't blame her for because one, she herself calls out the audacity and non-realistic ways that her situations came out with her first being a gargoyle, and two, having her supposed mate's hot older brother knowing her obvious every thought and being stuck with her 24/7. She established herself even without her powers in this book, even though it was not as obvious as being able to turn to stone or have wings to fly. This leads me to really appreciate Grace as herself. I think part of me is missing the nostalgia of those days in the 2010s because she has to be all about cleverness, not only in how she's eventually going to overthrow Cyrus and become the Gargoyle Queen, but also how Grace needs to know how to defeat things without her powers always handy. Like in the prison, this was like one of the most prominent examples of that. She had to talk to people ranging from the giant's mate. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. Or before that, sorry, the giant's mate who she had to get to know first before going into prison and talking to said giant of the one who made the chains of the unkillable beast to communicating to her to Hudson. Maybe I'm just so thirsty, guys. I don't know over Hudson. Maybe Hudson's just like taking over mine. But anyways, to Grace communicating to Hudson her idea of killing two dumb giants in the Colosseum on the bet of getting out of that torture prison without any of their powers. Like, okay, like come on. I just got to clap for her because that was a moment that had me edge on edge, you guys. Like, this is Grace. Like, Hudson, I had a little bit more credit for because he is a vampire and he could fade easily from one place to another. But Grace was completely human. And against two giants was Hudson, like, either to live and or die completely. Like, literally, that was the only two choices. Like, it was I just enjoyed the set of characters in Covet way more. Like, I don't get me wrong. I love the characters in Catmere. Please correct me how to say that. The Catmere Academy. But yeah, I enjoyed this one way more. That being said, let me talk about the real star of this book. And I'm sorry, not sorry, because Grace has my complete and utter respect as the main heroine, but Hudson has something else entirely. All right. So first up, I gotta ask this. What the fuck did he promise her on that ring? I just want to know. I definitely did not get such an arrogant vibe from him compared to Crush. I definitely think that this book was made to kind of enrapture readers in their fated relationship. It's something I realized would have been there all along, even without Jackson's interference of that bond. Like I mentioned before, Remy is a psychic who was born within that torture prison. So the fact that he always saw Grace as his savior, Graves would have always needed to be Hudson's mate, which was fated, but people interfering, like the blood letter, Grace's parents attempting to intervene just to make it sadder on nice moments from Crave. Like Grace and the blood letter, like from what I understood, have a pact to help each other out. And she wanted someone to be from their side to be bonded to her Jackson. And that's a whole other thing because this is something that like ideally Hudson would have never have come back and then Jackson not ideally, but like, ideally under like the bloodletter and Grace's parents' plans, like Jackson and Grace would have been manufacturedly mated, but alas, the universe was like, fuck no, we're gonna make this complicated because y'all tried to intervene and universe was like, oh no, Miss Grace is gonna be going with Hudson. But he that being said, I ultimately love Hudson on his own in this book. Oh my god, I am such a fucking simp for him. I am a thirsty hoe for this man. Okay, I will make sure if he's ever real, but I know he's a fictional character, but he has my heart. He has my heart. I love all his wrongs. I love all his right, and I'm in support of that. That's all I got to say about that. He is literally one of the most powerful people in this universe who, according to Grace, has abilities that are incredibly limitless. And this was an example from Crush because I remember at one point he let her borrow his powers and she was just like, damn. I don't know. Part of me is feeling Magneto from X-Men First Class vibes. Like, oof, he has like, he has that. My goose, you'd be like, what the hell again? I don't care. But he's like, he has like that. He's not afraid to fucking take you down and unalight people for you. And the only other thing more powerful than his power is his love for Grace. And I quote one of the examples I chose from the book. Quote, I'll never make you choose Grace. How could I when I know you'd never choose me? End quote. I was like, oh man, no, this girl gotta choose him now. It's such a beautiful quote by a complicated man who um, dare I say, morally gray, who always puts everyone else first and burns anyone who tries him. End quote. It's written all over his face. He would disintegrate anyone, everyone. If it means saving me, he would literally set fire to the world. And end quote. That being said, I'm going to use that quote to transition over to their relationship because it needs to be talked about. I need to talk about it. But I just wanted to state one of the most obvious things that come out of Grace and Hudson's relationship is the difference between first love and a true love. Oof. There's this saying that my mom always tells me. She's always told me this, especially, well, mostly when I was in high school. She told me how about a first love is like puppy love, aka it's new. It's gonna grow in some type of way, and it's literally the first of everything. Grace puts it exactly like this. Quote, but that's kind of how young love isn't it? It's idealistic and explosive and perfect until it's not anymore, until it blows up or fades away or you just move on. End quote. Growing up from a girl to a woman, she really did in this. And she could really grow with Jackson, but not so much with Jackson. Sorry, not she could grow with Hudson, but not so much Jackson. Jackson and Grace saved each other from each other at the time because both of them were mourning specific parts of their lives. Jackson, I think, was mourning having this whole depth of power, not having his older brother having to kill, quote, quote, having to kill Hudson. Grace is mourning the death of her parents. She's trying to get over that hump, not trying to get over it. It's never easy. Like, I'm not saying, by any chance that anyone should rush the grieving process, but they both have what I mean is like they both have such intense situations in their life that they just wanted something to depend on. And for a while, that's what they were. Like I said, I think Crush is my least favorite right now, but Crave is my second because I always will have an appreciation for people for that first love. Like, call me a romantic, call me a thing, but that, like, that innocence, that not innocence, but like that the first of everything is always kind of new, and I think it made a perfect first book in this case. But that being said, with Hudson, she can be relying on him because she's also learned to be independent and learned to stand on her own. They each have an acceptance for both the negative and positive parts. I think some of my favorite moments of theirs have been in New York when they were at the Dragons banquet. And one of my favorite moments in particular was when, you know, when a man gets his beauty, Hudson gets Grace a variety of dresses. Call me vain. I don't really care. Call me vain. Call me a Capricorn, but I don't really care. If someone gets me a variety of dresses to choose from to go to a fancy ball, along with some tension and teasing, I mean, one of my favorite quotes that Grace talks about, and I quote, is this quote, but this is a slow, steady burn, the kind that gets hotter so gradually that you don't even notice it happening until you're almost at the boiling point. End quote. Plus, a man who can dance. I mean, come on. As a retired party girl and a current hot mess, having a guy knowing how to dance, like really dance instead of just grind on you kind of guy, is one of the best feelings. Like, again, it's one of the best feelings. Like, everybody not a lot of people know how to do that, and that is something that I will always appreciate. That being said, going back to the dance to the ball. I don't know what it was. It was not a masquerade, but like, the big fancy ball where people get really fancy and dressed. And the Capricorn in me can't help but be envious that they won a whole lot of money. So that being said, I know that the relationship was not too much of a shock, but definitely kind of a ball and chain at first because at first, I know that they were not all lovey-dovey right away, so I appreciated that each character had to take their time, mostly Grace, to process this because honestly, it's a tense situation, like, especially at her birthday party, like, come on, can we talk about the awkwardness in this birthday party? I was like, "Look, Miss Jackson does not need to be invited to everything." But, I also know that, he's Hudson. It's an awkward situation. Like, it's almost as awkward as some family gatherings I have been known to go to. Not gonna say where, but yes, it's that kind of awkward situation. Like, but I will admit, like, I feel like Hudson knows more than he lets on. Like, he's known Grace for far more than she's known him, and that's why he's not afraid to like give her wildflowers in reality, like give her the wildflowers when they were first racing each other, like on the mountain. And he isn't like, he's suave. Like, I feel like he's really suave the way he's dancing, but at the same time, he's like he isn't afraid to argue back with her, and I'm just like, "Ooh, feisty." Alright. Yeah. Otherwise, love the relationship, love what they both do to each other, but I think one of the sadder, like, because I think one of my favorite moments, she's like, "Go," like, when they're fighting the giants towards the end, and she was like, "Go, I don't want you to, worry about me. I'm just a human. Save yourself." And he was full British. Are you bloody fucking serious? Oh no, ma'am, that's not happening. Like, pull your shit together and we're gonna kill these giants. I am not about to die at the hand in this prison here. And I was like, tell him, tell her. I was like, that's all. That I think I could go on and on about them, but in this case, those were like the moments that stood out to me a lot in Covet. So that being said, I do have to get to the Covet because, you know, there was some sad moments in Covet, and I was not a fan. But let's start on the deaths. Oh dear, the sadness that I truly felt about Flint when when he finally had Luca to go to. He just wanted to get out of prison and he was just over Jackson. And don't even get me started on Jackson and his almost death because I was crying and tearing up. I naturally did not want Jackson to die at all. And his last words, they sucked. Like, really? I know he wants to be an original, but can you pick better words? Like, why does be again? It makes sense. Like, he's a drama queen. He is a tortured soul. Like, but then when the Dragon Queen gave him his heart, I'm like, what does this mean? I just want to know in the next book. I just want to know what Jackson will be like now. Like, why did Miss Dragon Queen give him her heart? I don't know. I feel certain things about this because Miss Dragon Queen was a baddie in her right. She's a queen. She has her dragon form, and it was said in the book like giving up your dragon's heart is worse than death. So the fact that she gave it to Jackson, I was like, this is interesting. Like, does she hope it'll fate him to Flint? Will him and Flint finally get together? Or what is this? Like, I want to know. Like, hopefully Court comes in fast enough because I have questions. I know I don't want him to be his Grace. They were good for a while, but I need Flint and Jackson to be happy in some way. Like, oh, and then Xavier and oh my goodness, that was sad. Like, I just want basically need King Cyrus to be disintegrated and away from the throne. So here's hoping for better in the next book. I think that, well, I don't know. There's just some things that need to be discussed like that. Like, I'm hoping Jackson has a better ending where Like, I know that last battle took a lot out of the main team at the end of Covet. So I'm wondering how this is gonna go because Cyrus clearly has a lot of allies on his side. He literally had the oh god, was it witches or dragons or werewolves? Oh dear. Well, he had more than two mystical creatures, two whole sides of mystical creatures on his side. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now. But it's interesting because it's like I'm excited for Grace to be the gargoyle queen. Interested to see where this is gonna go. So that being said, I'm not gonna lie, Covet is for me, if I'm ranking this in order right now for my favorite, it's gonna be Covet, Crave, and Crush are like that's the order from Covet's my favorite right now. Crave was my second, and then Crush is the bottom. It is what it is, guys. Like, come on. Okay. But yes, other than that, if you still have stuck around listening to me drone on and be thirsty over Jackson. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, so embarrassing. I know I love Jackson, but Hudson's the one I would definitely ha, Hudson, honey. Hudson. Okay, stop it. All right. But if you still here, thank you so much. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of whatever it is for you. And thank you. Bye bye.